Dude, I want to dive into your like training methods and like what kind of the day to day looks like for that. Cause obviously, again, I mean this in the best way. You're a little bit older and like
Yeah.
you're not historically a runner. You know, the first 40 years of your life, you didn't
Yeah.
run like you are now. It's like being able to avoid injury, being able to recover fast enough, and put in all the big miles and continue to do these back to back race efforts. Is there like a secret sauce you've got? Like what allows you to do this?
It all changed. It all changed when I got a coach. I think that's the biggest thing that helps a lot of people is that you have someone that's more experienced than you. They've been in those situations and they can kind of guide you through these beginning stages when you're just learning how to, simple things like getting ready for a race. What do you eat the week before a race? How do you recover? Recovery is the number one thing right now. If you can do that well, you can line up every day, you can be consistent, and you can stay healthy. So finding Richard, who we met through a mutual friend, and he's just not only is he my coach, he's one of my best friends. And so we talk on a weekly basis, and his philosophy was the aerobic base. You try to build that up as much as you can before you even step on a track to do speed work, before you ever start doing marathon pace miles. So he took me from doing everything at marathon pace miles to doing a lot of base miles. And so we took a huge block of time, like maybe 3-4 months before I did that first Boston. And he just had me do everything easy. And that was very hard for me because I'm out there jogging around and these people are blowing by me. And again, that's my pride. That's my competitive spirit. And I'm like, I can't do a 10-mile run at 9 minutes a mile. That's what I told him. And he said, well, you're not going to get faster if you don't. You got to build these miles, but still be able to recover, still be able to line up the next day and do the same thing, because we're going to have you up to 80 miles a week. And so I guess that building that aerobic base and learning how to be patient with the miles, how to be, satisfied with going out and running 2 to 3 minutes slower than you think your marathon pace is. That's so huge.
Yeah. It takes, I think, more discipline to do that every day. It's so easy to go out and just run as hard as you can or run at your marathon pace. I think that's easier. Definitely requires a lot of patience and discipline. What's your typical, like, do you run at a certain pace? Or you say, today I'm going to do 9 minutes a mile for these miles? Or do you run off of heart rate or just strictly off of feel, or what's that look like?
Yeah, a lot of mine is off of feel. Okay. And it normally, my easy miles end up being between 8:30 to 9:15. Yeah. And that's where I've found that it just feels good the next day. Like I can get out and do 10 miles one day, 12 the next, 8 the next. And so that's been a good kind of area that we can, or pace wise that we keep it.
How long did it take you to develop that feel for like, this is what my easy day pace should feel like? Was it at first maybe doing heart rate, kind of using that, or how did you go?
Started out doing heart rate, exactly. And having like a, something to look at, you're looking at a number, trying to keep it down. But that was frustrating for me because my heart rate is historically it just jumps up when I'm running. Like it's high. Like you'll look at some of my marathons on Strava and it's like, hey, you averaged 190 during the race. I'm like, how am I still alive? But I felt okay. Yeah. So, you have a resting heart rate of 40 and a max heart rate of 200, but I guess that's good.
Yeah. It's, when you first started training Zone 2, was your heart rate pretty high? Has it gone down since then? Like
it
for
has.
Your easy pace?
It has slowly gone down. Yeah. And then I just kind of went with feel. Richard, he's a lot more about feel than he is about numbers. And I think that's why he's been so successful, is that he really can go out, do a run all by feel and know what it's supposed to feel like. So
I think there's a lot of power to going out for a run and not looking at your watch and just going strictly off of feel. I think there's so much power to that.
Absolutely. The other thing, once we had the aerobic base that he taught me was these long runs with certain miles at marathon pace. Yeah. So you're going out, you're doing, whether it's 2x3 intervals or 4x4, or just going out and doing a 18-mile long run with 12 at marathon pace, and just really getting a feel for that. What is this marathon pace supposed to feel like? And then on top of that, throwing in some tempo to where marathon pace feels a little bit easier. Yeah. So all those things I learned, and as I did, I just saw the results very, very quickly.
Yeah, there's definitely a formula to marathons because it's so dependent upon like your lactate threshold for the most part. And if you can sit like right under that lactate threshold for your marathon, like that's right where you want to be.
Right.
That's what I think makes those elite runners so good is they're like, they can, I've talked to Zach Bitter about this. You know him? He's like an elite ultra runner.
I've seen him with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And he talks about how like Kipchoge and Kiptum, they can ride that line down to like 1 to 2 seconds a mile slower than their lactate threshold. And they're just right on the cusp. They've dialed it in so closely that's what allows them to go so fast. Obviously they've got some other factors there, but that's the cool thing about marathons, I think, is it's so data driven and scientific really when you get down to it, that you can really dial in like your training paces, and okay, if you can do this many intervals at this distance at this pace, then you can run this time for a marathon roughly, which is cool.
It's crazy that Richard, or people that know this sport, they can predict based on your workouts, you're probably going to be within this for the marathon, and he's never been wrong on mine. So you're right. It's so data driven. It's so down to the second as far as what people are capable of based on what they're doing in training.
Yeah, it's even crazy like on race day. If you go out 5-8 seconds a mile too fast, that seems so insignificant, like 5,200 feet in a mile.
Right.
If you show up 5 seconds too soon, you do that a couple of times, like you're probably going to blow up at the end.
Yeah.
Because again, you're always right on that line of like lactate threshold. Dang, I love that. That's so cool. What about like your strength training routine? What does that kind of look like in conjunction with your running?
So I try to do that 3 times a week. I love kettlebells.
Yeah.
I love to get those out and follow a lot of your videos and just different things that I can incorporate. Really hitting on the glutes, on the core, trying to hit the hip flexors. These things that, if you were going out to lift weights to look good, you wouldn't do these, but these are so vital for runners. I've talked to several people just from a physical therapy point of view with knee pain, whether they're running or not. But a lot of times it's those weak glutes that we never focus on.
Yeah.
They're so important to what we do, because running is a single, leg exercise, and your glutes, man, if they can carry the load, you're going to stay pretty well fit and healthy and feel good when you're showing up every day to run.
Yeah. What about, as a physical therapist, you probably describe this better than me, but I know so much of strength training is you're just like activating the nerves, right?
Yeah.
And so from what I know, one of the reasons, again, the glutes, I think, are one of the main things for runners, is because maybe people don't have weak glutes. It's just they're not activated. Like the nerves aren't activated in your body, and your mind can't make that connection to like rely more on your glutes, and you're overemphasizing your quads or something else. Is that true? Like, do you know much about that side of things?
That's a little deeper than I probably have researched or studied, but it makes sense. Every muscle is nerve driven, innervated by a nerve. So I think that, trying to get that neural pathway and muscle connection is very important.
Yeah. What are some exercises you do, like on a typical leg day?
Oh man. Just squats, goblet squats with the kettlebell swings, deadlift. Again, not nearly as heavy as you do, but those just really hitting those, any way that I can hit the glutes without, not being able to show up to run the next day.
Right.
That's my goal. And I don't spend more than 30 minutes at a time doing strength training.
That's huge. People, I think, assume you got to spend 90 minutes in the gym. Yeah. It doesn't take that long.
No, it doesn't.
You do it 30 minutes. Most of mine are 30 to 45 minutes. They can be quick and easy. You mentioned like maybe 3 or 4 exercises. You probably do those same exercises every week, right?
Yeah. I don't change it up a lot.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot for upper body. I love pull-ups. I think it's that gets everything, chest, shoulders, back. So those combination exercises, so you don't have to spend so much time isolating everything, those are so important.
Yeah. I think the functionality is huge.
Absolutely.
And doing those different compound movements and I like doing curls sometimes just to try and look good.
Hey, dude, we all do curls. We're outside. I joke around when I'm at my house. I don't wear a shirt, so you got to have you got to keep those
of course, you got to look good too.
Yeah.
And I think it just feels good to like go in and maybe occasionally work out like a bodybuilder, just get a good pump
Sure.
once in a while. But I think making the functional movements the priority
Yeah.
is key.
Yeah.
And is that all kettlebell that you use, or do you use any barbells, any dumbbells,
No,
or
all kettlebell.
strictly kettlebells?
Yeah, I'd love to have a setup, like you got. I want to look at that in a little while, but
We'll go check it out after this.
the gym there. But that's the goal. Yeah, is to keep it simple. I have a small room that I kind of keep everything in. A few dumbbells, a few kettlebells, and that's it.
I love that. Again, I don't think you have to overcomplicate it.
No.
I mean, even with kettlebells, like you could have like 1 or 2 kettlebells and do all those things.
Absolutely.
Like you don't have to have a whole rack of them and this whole home gym. Like you can just have a couple pieces of equipment and do so much.
And you'd be surprised at how much of a workout you can get from a lighter, lighter kettlebell. I think mine are 35 and 40, and it doesn't take much once you're activating those muscles to get them going. So yeah, it doesn't take the heavy, crazy type of equipment.
That's great. Do you ever, do you get sore after doing those, or is it like, maybe before I ask that, what's like typical like rep scheme? Do you stick to like 6 to 10 reps, or what's that kind of look like?
I try to do, 6 to 10 reps, like 4 to 5 sets of each exercise. Yeah.
And does that leave you sore ever? Like, I know you said you do it to where you can still run the next day, but do you ever feel sore from any of that?
Never, like a little bit, but never bad enough to where it affects, daily life or running. Yeah. So
do you think that, I mean, it's kind of like active recovery in a way.
Sure.
For running too. Do you think that additional strength training helps kind of get the blood flowing and prevent a lot of the soreness that could come from running maybe?
I love doing it. Like, I know that you do the same thing after a big speed day or a big long workout. Get in there and work out, do a little strength training, because not only does it help strengthen that muscle to get that blood flowing, but also stretches the muscle. Right. And it's very good active recovery. So I'm very big in that. Getting out, walking after a long run, all these different things are important, because you don't want that muscle soreness to creep in, because sometimes it can be delayed till the next day.
Right. Yeah. I think active recovery for me has been one of the biggest things. I always say motion is lotion.
Yeah. Movement is medicine. I tell my patients that all the time, because I work in an orthopedic hospital, and they just had, a surgery on their knee or their hip or their back. And the last thing they want to do is move around. But that's what our bodies are made to do. We're made to move. That's the way that God made us. And if we don't move, you start losing that range of motion. You start losing that strength. So movement is medicine, more even so than a pharmaceutical pill that you can take. It's our body is made to heal itself, and that's through blood flow. That's through movement, and it's a huge, huge thing to remember.